Welcome to another episode of Round Porch Hobbies, looking at Arduino sketches. This video we're going to check out a couple different button circuits. You can see them here. The first one is a little more complex, has a resistor and some wires. The other one is just a 2-wire circuit. And so we're just going to start by loading up the example button sketch from Examples, Digital, Button. And in our sketch, our button pin is going to be 23. As you can see on this diagram, it's the second from the top here, or on the pin and layout, it's the GPIO 23. We're going to use that as the button pin. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that to 23. And for the LED, we're going to use the internal LED, which is pin 2 on the ESP32 that we're using. And let's just go ahead and compile this and upload it as it is. And we'll kind of go through it here. Okay, now that the sketch is uploaded, you can see if I push the button here, we have LED going on and off. And I'm just going to walk through the sketch a little bit here. So for the setup, this runs one time. Anytime the device loads, we're setting our LED pin to output because we're going to control voltage going out of it, either high when the button's pressed or low when it's not pressed. And the button pin, which again is pin 23, which is kind of the second pin from the right there, we're going to set to an input so we can read. We're using digital read, which is essentially saying, is there voltage on the pin or not? That tells us if the button is pressed. If there's voltage, we set the LED to high, turn it on. If not, we turn it off. And on the sketch itself, you can see we're using the top left pin, which is 3.3 volts. That's going over to our button, which when depressed sends that 3.3 volts to our button pin that we're reading. And you need a resistor here because if you don't have that pin grounded, which we'll see if we can show what happens on the thing here. If I take this resistor out, you can see that it's detecting certain voltage. So essentially, if the button pin is not grounded, it's called a floating pin. It has no reference to if the voltage is high or low. So that's why you need that resistor in the circuit to ground that pin. And yeah, that's about it for I call this the classic, I guess, button circuit. So if you want to do something a little more interesting than turning on and off, you could do like a toggle. So I'm going to define a variable called toggle. And if the button state is high, instead of turning on or off the LED, I'm going to say the toggle is not equal to not toggle, which will swap it from, if it's true, it'll go to false. If it's false, it will go to true. And then we will write that to the LED It's either going to be high or low depending on what it was before. And to do this one, we want a little bit of delay. Let's say 300 milliseconds. I'm going to upload that. Do the old press on the device. And now we should have a toggle instead of a on. So I push a button, it comes on. If I press it again, it stays off. And if you hold it, it will just continue to toggle. So that's a little different than just having it on when it's pressed down. And the delay gets a little tricky, like if you push it fast, it's not going to detect it. So you can play with the delay to get desired result of that. Now we're gonna switch over to this pull-up circuit. It's a little more simpler setup. So I'm going to switch over in a second here. Be right back. Alright, so the pull-up circuit, pin 23, is going to be set to what's called an input pull-up. So internally there's a resistor available that will pull up that pin to a high voltage. And then if we look at the circuit, when you push the button, it's just going to ground it out. So it's going to be high by default, and then ground it out low when you push the button. So we need to modify just a couple of things: the pin to input pull up, and the button's low when it's pressed. So we change that. I'm actually gonna reduce this delay to 200. Now we can see right now it's kind of doing weird things because we haven't uploaded the new sketch yet, but push the button here. And now we should have the same toggle circuit, except with just 2 wires instead of needing the voltage and the resistor. So pressing the button is grounding out that pin, and it reads low, and that's how you detect it. So there we have it, with a couple different ways to detect button press, and we're getting closer to being able to do something with buttons. So we'll see you next time on Round Porch Hobbies.